going, keeps rolling. I've learned.
All right. Welcome to the Roaring Roundup. Jordan Cope here next to me.
I'm Tyler Beard.
And we're here to discuss a little bit about Towson's 29-26 victory over Holy Cross. Tyler, what did you see up there?
Yeah, it looked like a lot of things were actually working for the Tigers in that game. Obviously, you start off with Victor's 202 rushing yard game performance, which is huge for the team to establish the run game early and keep the points going on the board. And then it's also impressive to see Connor Frazier develop as a quarterback. You know, last year they had their struggles with the young offensive line, but this year it seems like with a stronger offensive line, Frazier has more confidence in the pocket and he's able to reach his receivers quickly. So the offense is impressive, while the pass rush has been very impressive throughout the 2-1 start for the team. So a lot of things are actually coming together for the team this year, and I think we're going to see a lot better performance than last year.
And Tyler, I gotta mention that one thing that I noticed that was a big factor in the game was some drop passes. That's got to be addressed, I think, in the upcoming weeks here. That was a big killer in the game, I felt like. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think Dowling had about 4 drops in the game, which is something you won't ever see again from him. He's a fifth-year senior, and Coach Ambrose stressed that he's one of the team leaders, and that he felt bad about it as well. But that's something that won't happen again. So I think if you make those plays in the game, that game would have been much more of a blowout than a 3-point victory. So I think we're going to see a lot better hands from the receivers, especially with Dessenberg show great hands, and then you have Jaquil Vay making great plays also. So Dowling will definitely pick up that performance, and you'll see a lot better plays from him.
I agree. You know, against East Carolina, Dowling looked like one of the premier receivers that the Tigers had, making all kinds of catches, and he actually proved how good at hands he has in that game against Holy Cross when he grabbed that 2-point conversion, Odell Beckham Jr. style there, going up for it and coming down with it. Even despite that contact there, he came down with it. But next week I believe we have Elon, the Phoenix. They lost to NC A&T, I think, 14-7. So, what do you expect to see against Elon here?
Yeah, I think it's big to start off conference play with a win. So I know that I'm sure Coach Ambrose is stressing to the team that they need to go 1-0 against Elon, because when you start off that strong conference play, you build momentum and you keep moving forward with that. And I think we're going to actually see a win from Towson because of just how strong the offense is starting to come together. And Darius Victor has shown that he is one of the best, if not the best, running back in the CAA. And I don't think Elon will be able to have an answer for his running attack and his style. So look for big numbers from Victor. Look for that to increase Frazier's passing attempts as well. When they start to play in the box on the run, Frazier might be able to raw and make some big plays, maybe to Dowling, we'll see. And I just think that offense is going to be too hard to stop. And Towson should come away with the win on that one.
And, you mentioned how important conference play is. It's very important this year, especially even more than so, because then the schedule really starts to heat up for the Tigers. After Elon, they're going to be at home against James Madison, which is never an easy game in the conference. You also, I believe, they're going to be taking on Villanova and William and Mary in the following weeks. So, getting off to that good start in conference play and really setting the tone for CAA play will be crucial for the Tigers, I think. As you mentioned with Victor, I mean, he looks just as good as he did last year.
Yeah, I mean, as Coach Ambrose has mentioned, that he has a big advantage with his size and his speed. And, when you look at the comparisons with him, he's kind of got that Ray Rice kind of build. He's a small running back, and he hits the hole hard, and he runs straight forward. He doesn't do a lot of shaking movements. He moves forward. So I think it's really hard to see him when, there's big linemen, and he just spurts to the hole. So that's why I think that he uses that to his advantage, and that's why he's one of the best running backs in the CAA.
Mm-hmm. Also, I like to build upon is Frazier's dynamic ability there, like you mentioned. I think you might see a little bit more of Frazier using his feet here if he doesn't have anything open. That's a really big game changer that opponents are going to have to work on, especially these CAA schools here.
Yeah, I think Frazier's done a good job of being able to recognize when nothing's open and either throw it away or take off, because he does have good feet. I mean, he's got a few rushing touchdowns already this year.
Not next week, but the week after James Madison. I think it's Villanova, right?
I think that might be
Yeah. What do you think Villanova looks really well, or a good team this year. Um, what do you expect to see from that game?
I think it's tough to see. I mean, I know that the team probably wants to take things by a week basis, so I think they're only looking towards Elon right now. But if they can come away with a win against Elon, then they'll definitely move them forward. And then they have the bye, and then they have the James Madison game. So, I mean, it's hard to look forward because a lot can happen in 3 weeks to Villanova. But if the offense stays steady and there's no injuries and the defensive line keeps getting a great pass rush, there's a lot of guys on that defensive line that can rotate in and out and get to the quarterback and hurry the quarterback. So it's been a big advantage for the Tigers this season. So as long as that stays steady, I don't think the Towson Tigers will have much of an issue for Elon. James Madison will be tough, but they can be able to put on a good show, especially at home.
Now, since we're in the Baltimore area, it's kind of fitting to talk about the Ravens. Tough loss against Oakland to go 0-2. Derek Carr lit that defense up, and it's kind of surprising to see after how well the Ravens did against Peyton Manning in Week 1. I believe they hold him to 17 points, right?
Yeah.
And then they give up 34 points to Derek Carr, kind of a interesting situation there. But do you think missing Suggs was that big of a difference, or?
I didn't think at first that losing Suggs would be that big of a deal with all, Doomerville and the defensive tackles that they have strong there. And, of course, I thought Upshaw was going to be a much bigger factor. But it turns out it looks like they really did miss out on Suggs because I don't think we had one sack against Carr. And he had a lot of time in the pocket, which, I mean, you can blame the secondary in a lot of those throws. I mean, there's a lack of communication, it looked like at times. But when you can't rush the quarterback and they have all day long, I mean, plays are going to open up.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, when you don't get any rush on the quarterback, then the secondary is the best corner in the league. Darrelle Revis or any of these other Richard Sherman. These premier cornerbacks are not going to be able to stick with their respective wide receiver coverage that they're trying to attain when they are there's no pass rush. So that really killed the Ravens, and I thought Aiken's first catch there, fumbles the ball, first play of the game, I think. And that really just set the tone. From there, it's just like, it's going to be one of those games if you're a Ravens fan, seeing Aiken just fumble the ball. So.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you never expected Baltimore to begin the year 0-2. Maybe 1-1 because Denver was a tough game, but 0-2 is tough, especially when you have to play Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, which are always two tough division games. So, Baltimore's facing a really harsh reality that they could go 1-3 or 0-4, and that's something Baltimore fans have not seen in a while.
Yeah.
So it could be some bad days ahead.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, the next 2 weeks, things are not getting any easier for the Ravens. I don't know if it's time to hit the panic button just yet, but going 0-3, I think statistically, if you start out the year 0-2, your chances of making the playoffs really plummet. And 0-3 is even obviously greater odds. So, if the Ravens may be facing a must-win in the tough division that they are in, and it's gonna start against Cincinnati here. They gotta dig in a little here. Use that home crowd to their advantage. Get more pressure on Dalton so the cornerbacks aren't left to dry out with guys like A.J. Green and Gresham. What I did notice that in the game against Oakland was the offense looked much better than it did against Denver. They were rolling Flacco out a little bit more, which they weren't at all against Denver. The running game looked a little bit better. And, Joe was finding the wide receivers. But one thing there is to mention is that Joe has one solid wide receiver, and obviously that's Steve Smith Sr. After that, it's just downhill in terms of wide receivers there. But
yeah, I think it's tough for Joe. He's been dealt with a tough blow. You bring in Brashad Perriman with your first round pick, and he sprains his PCL, and he's still out right now. So not having that speedy guy with Joe's big arm has definitely hurt him. So he's had to rely on Steve Smith, which isn't a bad guy to rely on because he's someone that can carry a team. But I think it's crucial that Flacco continues to rely on his young tight ends. Crockett Gilmore has started to look really good with hands, and then you see Max Williams get involved as well. But yeah, I think injuries always play a huge part in football, and when you lose Perriman and then you're down your number 2 receiver and you lose Suggs, your defensive captain, it's not a surprise that you start off 0-2 because those are tough blows to a team. But a team coached by John Harbaugh can always find a way out of the rut. So I think you're going to see a win coming against Cincinnati coming up, because it's really hard to imagine the Ravens going 0-3 to start off this season.
Mm-hmm. And the schedule doesn't get any easier after Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. The team has to face the NFC West, I believe, San Francisco, Arizona away on the road, Seattle,
and St. Louis.
And St. Louis. Yeah. So, I mean, St. Louis did lose to Washington, but you got to respect that Rams defense. And then Nick Foles, obviously, that's not going to be an easy game. San Francisco on the road, you don't know what you'll get out of that. And Arizona, you got to respect again with that tough defense from Bruce Arians, and Todd Bowles did a great job with them last year. And, their new coordinator is still transitioning, a great defense there in Arizona. And Seattle, no matter where you're playing, Seattle, tough game with Russell Wilson, those cornerbacks, the Legion of Boom, and all that. So
yeah, they definitely have an interesting stretch coming up, but Seattle's also faced with an 0-2 start. So you're seeing a lot of teams not starting out the way that they thought, especially the Eagles starting off 0-2 with that kind of offense. So I think the NFL is just it's funny every year because teams jump out early and some teams falter. But, I think we're going to see the Ravens find their evening towards the year, and I think a 9-7 finish, or maybe 10-6 is respectable.
Mm-hmm. And jumping ship now to the Orioles, you gotta bring them up. I think they're about 5 games back, still not officially eliminated, but we'll see what we get from them. Playoffs look unlikely, but I heard Adam Jones recently said he's going to have a private meeting with Peter Angelos regarding free agency, which I just find really interesting. Chris Davis, Wei-Yin Chen, Darren O'Day, Matt Wieters, huge parts to the Orioles nucleus that could be gone next year. And with Chen and Davis and Wieters, their agents are Scott Boras, who's going to – I can't even imagine what Scott Boras is telling all 3 of those guys in terms of money. That'll definitely be interesting as that plays out.
Yeah, I think free agency is going to be pretty huge for the Orioles this year. You're going to see a lot of guys leave. I don't expect Wieters or Chen to come back, and Chris Davis is going to demand a lot of money, so it'll be interesting to see if they're willing to give him that kind of money to stay in Baltimore. But Jones meeting with the owners, I feel like it's a good sign because he wants to win and he wants to keep this core nucleus here. So, but I also think he wants to bring in some new guys in here. There's a lot of good frontline starters out in free agency. You got outfielders like Alex Gordon or Jason Hayward that's out there. So I think Jones just wants to keep the winning mentality in Baltimore because, obviously it's been fun these last couple of years and having all the fans back out in the yard. So I respect that he wants to talk to the owner and try to keep us a winning ball club, which is good.
All right, guys, next week, Towson plays Elon on the road. Ravens at home versus Cincinnati. And the Orioles start a series.
We still have them.
Yeah,
we just have them.
We just have them. So thanks for joining us here, and we look forward to catching up with you guys next week. Thank you so much.